Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Here you are in dreamy dreamland. And I am your Sensei L. Bob, here to tell you a story. Don't believe a word I say. Everything is just for your entertainment's sake. And this show is not for a childish mind. So all you people who believe in something and ready to kill for it, that's pretty childish. So out of here. Anyone who doesn't have an open mind, that's that's actually a death sentence to you. We want to get you to have an open mind. Come on, wake up, wake up, wake up. The last two shows were just outings that I was at around town. And like I said, I want to first thank everyone who has put something in my PayPal, and which has been very, very helpful. And, when you're on the BOP, you have a tendency I keep saying I live like a millionaire on $400 a month. Now, when I'm in the woods, that's easy because I don't go anywhere and I don't spend any money. But here on the BOP, $10 here, $10 there, and then all of a sudden I don't have anything. So if anybody wants to send something onto my PayPal, remember, once you get on there and they'll ask you who do you want to send it to, that's the dudeawake42@gmail. And anybody who wants to talk to me personally, the dudeawake42@gmail, right? So that's where I'm at. That's what I look forward to hearing from you. So, we are at this interesting time here. It's going to be December. Wednesday will be December 1st, and that'll be the last month of 2021. Isn't that amazing how time flew like that? I mean, just yesterday, it was December 1st, 2019, and my good friend Cliff High was dropping me a line saying, hey, something's going on in China. I don't know what it is. I'll get back to you. And he got right back and said, oh, it looks like, biological warfare, right? And this was a good example. It wasn't China attacking us. Basically, it's the new world order, right? And remember, don't believe a word I say. This is all for your entertainment. This is a cartoon show. This is just a comic book. But if you were to go look at the Marvel comics, go to Captain America, Hail Hydra. I mean, that's what's going on. Stan Lee was right on top of it. The X-Men, biological genetic engineering by the Nazis in the 30s. I mean, that technology was there. Yes, it was crass. And yes, we have done better. But you got to remember, kids, in the mythological stories that have nothing to do with truth, because truth is just an illusion of your ego, right? And when, our politicians lie straight to your face, I did not have relations with that woman. No, I didn't, when all the Democrats want to do is tax and spend, and then you're going to have, what are you going to have? America will be like Europe. Well, Europe, free education, free healthcare, housing, no one goes hungry. But you have to realize, gang, that within the cartoon reality that you think you live in, that you know what you know, and it's a lie. It doesn't even exist. It's your ego, right? Wake up, gang. Wake up. So, first off, a good example is the last 2 years has been the largest transference of finances, of wealth, right? And basically, housing entity like BlackRock, which is the largest, investment house there is buying up single-family homes, right? Like whole new neighborhoods that are they're buying up the whole thing at 20% more than whatever the market value, because what they want to do is make everyone a serf. Everyone's going to be in a house that they're renting, right? The lower and middle class and upper middle class, they're all going to be serfs, right? And it's this little Magic 19 is just the first of many, and we've been having a ton of them, and all I can say is I'm glad I'm in my 70s, and I'm glad I had an interesting life, and I'm glad I've helped lots and lots of people. Sandra, good to hear from you. Happy Thanksgiving. Yes, I had my Thanksgiving meal in the fanciest hotel in town. A friend of mine gave me a chit to go have a free plate, and I had been cooking in the morning at the Salvation Army, which is a tradition I do. But my captain, who used to run that place, is no longer there. Oop la la. Exactly. And so I was cooking turkey and veggies and stuff, and it's always fun. Those people over there are fun. The bad thing, Salvation Army's been around forever, so they have and they're an army, so they have a good dynamic going. I mean, they really do try and help people, and the majority of their money does go to the needy, whereas other entities, nonprofit entities, are just putting it in their pockets, And a good example of that is education in America. Up until the Civil War, education was an individual thing. The families, mama taught the kids how to read by reading the Bible. And then, towns grew up, and so the towns got together and built a little schoolhouse on the prairie and got somebody to teach the kids. But it was about making those kids open their minds, right? But once, the majority of American population moved from the farms to the factories, they didn't need those folks to be educated, right? And they didn't give them any opportunity, just, give them the stuff to make them good robots in the factory, good proles, right? Because if you give anybody an opportunity to think or read or do anything outside the prescribed norm, you get a revolution. And that's what we got with in the industrial age came. And after, 50, 60s, 100 years of oppression of capital, you basically had the revolution of the unions. And that worked out pretty good for about 60, 70, from around 1880 to about 1980, the unions did a good thing, but then they were corrupted, just like our politicians. Our political system was relatively pretty interesting, the way it, separated control. And but now we have the best legislators, fascist corporate money can buy, and not just in the, national, Senate and Congress, but in the state legislatures and the governors and the county governments. I mean, it's good luck with that. That's why I live out in the middle of the woods. That's why the only guys I talk to are squirrels. So Sandra left. Let's see what we can throw on the old screen here. So really graceful is something I really like. So here we go.
Enhanced unemployment benefit. Hey, Internet friends, what do you get when you combine lengthy lockdowns, medical mandates, and enhanced unemployment benefits? Well, apparently, by chance or by design, you get supply chain issues, which are now in October of 2021 in full force. The news will tell you that this whole worldwide issue is due in part to the lack of shipping demand in the middle of 2020, when everyone was hitting 2 weeks to slow the spread on repeat for months from their couch. Reports say that the surge of demand by the end of 2020 led to delays, port traffic jams, and blockages across the supply chain. Of course, the lack of workers and lack of shipping containers that suddenly disappeared from the mix exacerbated the problem. So we have jammed up containers stuck in ports because there is and was a shortage of staff to both unload them and deliver them to their destination. And these medical mandates and these staffing shortages, those are entirely coincidental, according to the news. Early October reports have cited over 500,000 shipping containers stuck off the coast of Southern California. Even in my home state of Georgia, we're experiencing something similar with the Port of Savannah being impacted. There's nearly 80,000 shipping containers stacked up at the docks. And there are reports coming out of the Georgia Ports Authority that some ships were waiting for 9 days before getting a slot to unload their shipments. What they're not telling you is that when people stay at home, as they did during government-mandated lockdowns across the world, that of course means that folks aren't working, or at least they aren't working manual labor or factory jobs. And if they aren't working, that means the supply chain isn't functioning as it normally does. And if the supply chain is having difficulty, that means that we, the consumer, will inevitably be impacted. So tell me, have you noticed empty shelves at your local grocery store? I went to Costco today, and while there were no empty shelves, they were all out of paper products like paper towels and toilet paper. But instead of obvious empty spaces, they had those spots filled with cases of water so the average person wouldn't notice. But hey, maybe you're like me, and instead of empty grocery store shelves, you're noticing your weekly grocery bill going up and up and up. A report came out this week stating that food prices across the world have risen to their highest levels in a decade, which they attribute in part to these supply chain disruptions. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, meat, poultry, fish, and eggs were up 8% over the past year and 15.7% from prices in August of 2019. Dairy and sugar prices also rose 15.2% over the last year and 53.5% since August of 2019, while the price of meat was up 26.3% since last year. Of course, I'm reading all these mainstream media articles as I'm making this video, trying to get this exact data, and it's so funny. They're like, the prices are up because of the shipping containers. They're stuck at ports, but never do they once mention that the Fed is printing so much money. They're trying to pin this whole phenomenon on supply and demand, not inflation, not these medical mandates that people won't stand for and are therefore quitting their jobs. They're trying to distract from the fact that the government actually is the one who created this whole fiasco in the first place. Instead of detailing that whole timeline, the news cranks out fear in the form of saying that your children are going to be crying come Christmas because there will be no toys due to these supply chain disruptions. If there are any toys available, they're going to be expensive. So it's too bad if your mommy and daddy are poor. And hey, here's some more good news. Experts say that these issues are set to continue well into next year and beyond, giving no indication that things will get better by 2022. So what are you supposed to do with this information I just gave you? Am I telling you to go out and panic buy? To go get in fights with people over toilet paper? No, of course not. That's not what I'm trying to tell you. It's so funny to me that these global warming folks have absolutely nothing to say about a tiny package shipped thousands of miles across the world on 10 different carriers from China, like absolutely just radio silence on that topic. But as your ratchet Nostradamus, I don't see a plausible future in which the future is local, is based around community, because the government has nothing to benefit from that. They don't benefit at all. Government-sponsored monopolies of crony capitalism wouldn't flourish in the same way. And corrupt politicians and lobbying keeps them in that position. But that's another tangent for another day. No, I'm not trying to tell you any of that. I'm trying to tell you that the World Economic Forum told us this was all going to happen with their Great Reset. The Great Reset being the name and theme of the 50th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum held in June of 2020. And yes, there are a million debunking articles saying that conspiracy theories surrounding the idea that world leaders use COVID to essentially take over the world economy, those debunking articles say that it's just a silly, goofy idea crafted by village idiots, those QAnoners, those types. But I've been documenting the economic fallout of COVID since before the impacts even hit your average person. When over 1,000 CEOs of major corporations stepped down between the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, almost like they knew what was coming. Then came the lockdowns where small businesses were forced to close, but Amazon factories and Walmarts were allowed to stay open, essentially enhancing their government-supported monopoly over the economy and totally killing any small businesses remaining. And instead of the government incentivizing returning to work, the government incentivized staying at home with enhanced unemployment benefits. So I asked y'all this question. Do you believe the supply chain is being sabotaged? I received some very interesting answers, and I would like to read you a few of them. LK Native Texan said manufactured. I am in the industrial fabrication business. The only reason for there to be this many breakdowns in supply chains across all of these industries would be an intentional one. Corporations don't like their bottom line to be affected by anything and take measures to mitigate damages. This is one of the problems with crony capitalism. Small guys like me have to suffer at the hands of very large corporations who are nothing more than government entities under the guise of independent corporations.
Well,
Hawkish
fascism.
answered with a really interesting question, saying that they believe the whole thing was manufactured. And here's what no one is talking about. What is in all these containers? Could this be the clandestine staging of a Chinese military invasion? Thomas said, I've worked in production and logistics for 30 years. Government, not COVID, shut down production and logistics. Global businesses willingly comply knowing that they are too big to fail, unlike Ma and Pa. This is orchestrated at the highest rungs. Cause and effect. I'd have to agree, Thomas. Dan brought up an interesting point, saying that, yes, he thinks the crisis is manufactured because, well, this didn't happen after the stock bubble, 9/11, the housing bubble, and pretty much every other crisis of the last 30 years. Thank you to everyone who replied, and I actually searched the replies to see if anyone answered no, that they didn't think it was manufactured in their reasoning, so I could read it on here. But everyone was in agreement that the supply chain disruption was indeed a part of the manufactured chaos by world.
So that's really graceful. You should check her channel out. Very, very good. Very excellent. Oh, let's see. Where's my other device? Here we go. So
the Aztecs to say, actually.
this is a guy named Dark Journalism. He's quite good.
And we are live. This is Dark Journalists. It's great to be with everyone tonight. What a fantastic crowd already. And of course, I'm joined by the lovely Olivia.
Hi, everybody.
And Olivia, President Biden came out and said 350 Americans have.
Was it 350 million?
Yeah, 350 million Americans. That's more like it. Have received the vaccine. Well, that's interesting because there's only 330 million Americans in America, period. So this is very interesting arithmetic. Maybe some of the underground bases are getting thrown in. Think about it. This is interesting. It's great to be with everyone here for X Series 105. And this one's going very deep because we're talking about female targets. And we did an episode of Female Targets featuring Vicki Morgan. And, there was a lot in that episode, and there's more to come even around that story. And what's going on really in these episodes is we're looking at how these deep state targets show up. And when they're female, they deal with them very differently. And also those cases aren't as well known or as well investigated, frankly. But they are heavy with meaning. And in this case, we're going to go into an even more obscure area, which is we're going to talk about astral targeting, which is what's going on in a kind of supernatural sense. And I've picked out this case of George Hodel, and the thread goes deep through his daughter to Michelle Phillips. And then if you go further back, all the way back to Stanford. in the founding of Stanford and the eugenics movement. And as we look at these things and go deep, we're going to find ourselves faced with the very heavy case of the Black Dahlia murder as well. So there's Hollywood here, there's intrigue here, there's deep state here, but in this particular episode, we're going to talk almost about a kind of a supernatural stalking force. And I think it's very important that we look deeply at the people who were in the Cosmos Club episodes, because they reoccur here in a different role. And here they are again, and always coming under this eugenics umbrella. So this is going to get us deep into the female targets too, which is supernatural eugenics. There's a Hollywood story here. There's a Michelle Phillips story here from the Mamas and the Papas. And there's a kind of supernatural force that is trying to involve all these people in its doings. And when we go through it, we find it comes into everything from the movie Lolita and the lead actress, Sue Lyon, who was a good friend of Michelle Phillips, all the way to the pop music industry and beyond. And that's why tonight is going to be so intriguing. And I have to tell you, in researching this, I don't think there's anything that is less explored than the supernatural aspect on this. I think that it's been a big missing puzzle, and I think that some people have done an incredibly able job exposing Hollywood and exposing some of these cases and the deeper links, but they're all kind of hanging out there with their mouths open at the end thinking, what was it all about exactly? And that's where the supernatural piece is going to come in extremely handy for us at this time. And I want to also remind you that in the second half of the broadcast, we're going to be taking your questions, and Miss Olivia will be putting those together for us. And how's the temperature out there? It's already,
Excellent.
yeah, I already see a
Very
lot of
good
good
vibe.
questions. I happen to think that, when we get into this area of the early eugenics movement, it's also quite fascinating. Because
So, you guys should check those out. I just play them to whet your appetite, and both those really graceful and dark journalism, excellent sites, and there are many, and they are, my site here is just put on the bottom of the barrel, and there's only 450 of you subscribed. So how about some more subscriptions and some more thumbs up, and how about some hitting that bell, and if you want to send something to my PayPal, my email address is thedudewake42@gmail, and that could really help because I have like pennies left until a week from now, so I won't be bouncing around too much. But the dynamic of what it is, and dark journalism was alluding to it, and that's a supernatural and the paranormal. What is the paranormal? It's parallel normal. If you go read Michio Kaku and Stephen Hawking, they're talking about, parallel universes and string theory. And that's pretty much what's out there, and any kind of little thing that you see bumping in the night is you bumping up against a parallel universe, or, and so that's paranormal, and supernatural is the natural that is super, right? That goes above and beyond our six senses. So our six senses can measure 0.00000004500 of the universe, right? The 99.9999, 6-7 of the universe. It's like dark matter. We don't see it. We can't measure it. We haven't developed instruments. Back in the day when we had no idea what radio waves were, or microwave were, or radiation was, we didn't even know it existed until we people like Madame Curie and Nikola Tesla and numbers, Mr. Newton, and Mr. Newton was constrained by when he was and what time, because he understood everything that Tesla understood, because he read the ancient documents and realized things that were way 60,000 years before he was born were more sophisticated than this. And, why they had to invent Egyptology was to muddy the waters, because I have been in the pyramids. I was brought to Egypt to look at things that were there. And it was after the, the first Iraq War in 91 was not about, Kuwait. That was, the girl who cried on television and said, "Oh, I saw them throwing babies on the floor and taking." No, she was going to school in America. Her father was a diplomat. She was just, acting, right? And everything you see on the news is a scripted, soap opera to get your emotions going. You should be thinking with your heart, right? And feeling with your head. So when something happens to you emotionally, you don't, react with your hormones. You go, let me think about that. But when you're trying to figure out what's going on in the universe, you don't pick up a textbook, right? Or Google it. You let your gut tell you what's going on, right? And we are heading in, you think 20 and 21 were wacko years. After 20, everybody said, "Oh, wow, 21, it's going to be a better year." No, it's been worse. It's been weirder. It's been just, we're like Miss Grace there. She was talking to us about the supply chain, and, the other thing that you don't even see is basically entities, large corporate entities are buying up. There's a transfer of wealth that's beyond belief. When we got our last check from Jojo, the used car salesman, we each got about $600, but the top 0.1% got $5 trillion. All these houses that have been built and been selling at the top price, they've been selling it not, to Joe, homeowner. No, they are selling it to people like BlackRock, who is then renting those houses out. And that's what's going to happen. Within a 5-year period, no one's going to own a car. There are not going to be any truck drivers. Everything's going to be run by robots, right? And the technology that Tesla developed in the 1890s will be brought out. We will have wireless transmission of electricity. We will have zero-point energy. Forget burning coal, because there's, right on that edge between that universe and this universe that you kind of can see in that little black. Oh, what was that? What was, that's you seeing the edge of that other universe, which is right next to you, right in your field. But you are so dumbed down, you can't feel it, After the, Tower of Babel was taken down, we were thrown asunder, That's where, we stopped being able to be telepathic, so we couldn't tell who was lying and who wasn't. We were all our relations up until then, and now not so much, And so we are just being taken advantage of. And that ego that is taking advantage of us, that illusion, is a basic kind of. There used to be a really interesting TV show in the early O's, late 90s. It was called Dark Skies, and it kind of took things from the early 60s and 70s and what we remember, the Beatles and the Summer of Love and Jack getting shot and the Vietnam War and Man Walking on the Moon. All of those things were put into a perspective of these guys who were just, your Jane Doe and Larry Bob, who stumbled into seeing that we were being invaded. We were already invaded. They were already here. They had already been here for an awful long time. And back in the 60s, there was a show, and what was it called? The Invasion or something like that. There've been a number of shows on television that kind of portrayed the motif. And I met Werner von Braun at a cocktail party with my father, and he was, he was about they hadn't gone to the moon yet, so he was still, in the juice. And around this cocktail party, virtually everybody who was there, they didn't have a uniform on, American Air Force uniform. They were German scientists and German, and there were all these guys in corporate America that were Nazis. They've been straight up Nazis, And if you want to know about that, the best person who describes that very well is Joseph P. Farrell. And good old dark journalism, that's one of his favorite persons to interview, Joseph, because Joseph is just unbelievable fund of information. And the other person that he has on is Catherine Austin Fitts, an economist who was in the Reagan administration, and she just started seeing behind, the curtain what was going on with Federal Reserve has as much to do with the federal government as Federal Express. It's a privately owned, stock-held corporation. Has nothing to do with the government. Sorry. And here is this a bunch of reptiles running our economy, setting printing our money and setting its worth. And they have been just back in the day when the oil embargo occurred. That was another scam. Right. And what it did was it took the value of our dollar and drove it to zero. Right. And they took all the gold out of Fort Knox and sent it to other places, and not like to other countries, but to other entities. Right. Who, use the gold in a kind of magic form of alchemy. Now, I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. And what is that? Shaman, and shamanism is like, it's a worldview, right? And the worldview is that we're all connected. All our relations are connected. Right? We are, no one's like at the top or the bottom of the heap. We're all connected. And that's why Jesus was talking about, you are your neighbor's keeper. You are your brother's keeper. You should watch out for your neighbor. And when he's talking about neighbor, he's talking about the whole ball of wax. And there is a ecological collapse occurring, but it's no big deal, except it'll wipe us out, and maybe that's a good thing. But you are not your body. That you aren't this. Sorry, kids, you're not your body, and you're not even your soul. Your soul is just a server in your Akashic record, right? And so I'm a shamanic point of view. That's my worldview. It's not, democracy, it's not communism, and it's not capitalism. Those are not my worldviews. I'm more a fan of the we in me, not the exceptionalism of our present worldview. I'm the most important thing there is. It's all about me. I'm exceptional. No, sorry, that's not really true. It's what really matters is how connected you are with your neighbor and everything around you, the animals, the air, the trees, so that's what it's about. So that's my worldview, shaman, right? Everyone's connected. So psycho, what's that? It's the worldview of your perspective of your six senses, and so to understand your psychology, right? That worldview of your six senses, you've got to understand psychosocial. So social is your orientations, what job you have, what you think of yourself sexually, what you think of physically, your monetary status. That's, psychosocial, right? Your orientations. And then to understand that, you have to understand your cultural reference, where you came from, what grandma and grandpa, what you have, what holidays you celebrate, and what you eat for those holidays. That's the, psychosocial, cultural, not anthropologic, but forensic, which is you take all the threads apart and you see how the tapestry is woven. And then you look at, forensic anthropology. And that is the motif. Back in the day, they invented anthropology to, quote unquote, prove that white men were superior to everyone else, thus allowing, genocide to occur, because it's fine. We kill that 60% of the useless eaters because they're not white men, And what's really interesting is that white men are becoming infertile. They're not going, nature is making sure that white man can't reproduce. And not only that, women start having babies without fertilization. Now, they're not talking big time about this, but it is occurring. And it's occurring across the species, So it's Mother Nature, just, making a few changes here in the gene pool. And you have to realize, gang, that humans have been, at least in this species, in this, high school, science fiction experiment of Homo sapiens sapien, we are manufactured. Someone messed with one species or another, put the CRISPR on our genes, and bingo, here we are. And all we are is a good slave, right? Now, what got carried away is that Lucifer, broke us out of that with the concept of free will, right? We were never supposed to have free will. We were just supposed to be mindless, like what the majority of the population is, mindless, controlled robot slaves. We are biological robots, and because of the unexpected consequence of certain environmental impacts on us over the last 60,000 years, we are changing because we have spirit. You read the New Testament, Jesus doesn't talk about soul; he talks about spirit, right? And that spirit is the we and me, all of us together, all our relations. And that's what, and Jesus said he didn't want a religion that was based on some arcane book or a hierarchy, or, and women had to be as equal as men. Well, none of that got, because of that white male. And you don't even have to be, I am an African American that's melanin challenged, right? Skin color is irrelevant, right? Hey, let's see some more thumbs up, So, how do I know this, right? Well, I have traveled the world. I've been very lucky, meaning my present life has been the most amazing, just circumstantial. Anyone would say, "Oh, that was a consequence of a what do they call it when something happens and you can't put a reason on it? What do they call that? Forget it. Anyway, so my life, as all of ours, is a consequence of whether we are or are not conscious awareness, conscious intent. So I've had that from early on, right? I remember when I was 6, 5 really. I was living with my grandma, hanging out in the hood, and New York. Grew up that formative years. I grew up in a urban setting, right? And grandmas, we had no police. Grandmas ruled. If you were on one side of town and you did something wrong, and you got home, your grandma knew about it. It was like grandmas had their own communication system. Anyway, and grandmas took the time and effort to teach us what should be done and shouldn't be done. And that was self-respect, not good and bad. That was irrelevant. Self-respect. Don't steal, lie, or cheat because it has no upside for you, right? And so, I realized that at 5, and I realized that what made me happy was seeing grandma happy. What made me happy was seeing my friends happy. What made me happy was seeing the other adults in my life who I had respect for because they were righteous folk, not my parents who were being driven insane by this need to have more, and they never seemed to have enough. And my brothers and sisters are kind of in that same bent. Now, I had nothing to do with my family for most of my life, so I wasn't really, persecuted or prostituted or poisoned by my family's motif of living, which most people are, because most people are driven by this need of ego instead of understanding of love, right? Understanding that we are here to co-create with love. I just played a little of dark journalism, and it's great, truly, not truly, it's surely, it's something graceful, right? Grace. Anyway, so really graceful. And they do a great job on producing, ferreting out the data that's relevant to the moment right here, right now. Jimmy Dore, his show, he's a whack stand-up comedian that is doing a better job at news than Happy Thanksgiving, MJ. Yes, Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving, the whole story, I gave the story earlier in the other day about the Pilgrims, that basically they were merchants that came from England, and they were just wanting to come here and not, have to deal with, the government. So they, paid somebody off to get on a boat, and they got here, and they ended up out in the middle of the woods, and they were not farmers. They had no idea how to survive. And so that first year, a good portion of them died. And there was an Indian tribe that was nearby, not Puspatuk, but something close. And how they noticed the Pilgrims was that the Pilgrims found all of this food stockpiled in the woods, and the Indians left it there as an offering that was their graveyard. They didn't have any stones or crosses, so of course the Puritans didn't know that was a burial ground, but they totally defiled it and stole all the food. And so the Indians went and found those guys and didn't punish them, but they found them sick and dying and freezing in the winter because they didn't even know how to build shelters. So they took care of them over the winter, right? And in the spring, they tried to teach them how to build wigwams and homes and how to plant crops and all the rest. And, Pilgrims did a very poor job at that. And so they were heading into the next winter, not doing so good. So the Indians came over in the fall at the harvest time and brought a ton of food for them to try and see if they could make it through the winter. And what do the Pilgrims do? They eat it all up, right? And so the Indians go back to their camp, which is on top of the hill. And you know how the politicians, and we're the Golden City on top of the hill. Well, that was where those Indians lived. They had the best place, nice camp, lodge, everyone had enough to eat. Everyone had a place to sleep and be dry and warm in whatever time. They had medicine, they had education, they had everything to make them happy. And they lived and understood they lived in an abundant world. Well, what do the Pilgrims do? Because they have guns, they go up there and they kill the whole tribe. Bang, 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 right? Shoot them all up. Women, children, grandma, grandpa, the guys, everybody, deader than a doornail. and they live up there and in the best of places. And within a year, they destroy that and poison it, and they don't know how to live until they had to go on to the next and kill more Indians and kill more Indians. And that is what the Pilgrims did. They didn't, wasn't kumbaya with the indigenous people. And that's what the Anglo-Europeans have done to every indigenous people, wipe them out. But they don't seem to be wiped out, And in America right now, as every state and legislature is trying to Jim Crow back America, and what happened, why we lost Jim Crow wasn't because we said, oh, we have to be more, no. What it was LBJ realized that the black community that was segregated by Jim Crow had the 7th largest economy in the world because all the black people had black stores and black businesses, and they kept all the black money within the black community. And LBJ went to the Blue Dog Democrats, who were the super racist guys from the South, and the old plantation owners, and said, listen, you don't ride the bus. You don't eat at the counter. You think the poor white people are as much scum as the black. So why don't we just equal the playing field with the poor white people and the poor black people and just take all the black people's money? And that's what they're doing right now with this reset, right? And basically, hey, I'm in my 70s. I'm living out in the woods. I'm doing okay, right? I'm living like a millionaire on $400, right? And I can, I've trained now for the last 3 years. I've been out there in the winter for these 3 years. This winter, not so much. And so I came back to Virginia to try and get, because the city of Roanoke is a microcosm of the United States, has every issue, every positive thing, every resource. And yet, the entities that are supposed to be helping people are just a criminal enterprise. They are just ripping everyone off. The schools, the education system, the welfare system, whatever little part of it's left, has been totally, everything has been switched over from the social need to the business need, right? And from the business need of the community into the transnational corporate fascist need of control. And and we're going to have, I would say in 2022, this is what's going to happen. First off, we're going to have the, go on. And Jojo, the used car salesman, whether he's acting like he's, basically got Alzheimer's or he's got it, doesn't matter, because he's just reading the script and doing what the script tells him to do. And Chamala or Lamina or whatever her name is, I don't even know if she's a woman, because she could be a robot, because no one in the Congress and the crew or the whatever the people who are supposed to be progressive, no way, Jose, they're not going to get anything done. So the next election in 22, the Senate and Congress is going to be totally wacko, NICP. And what is that? Neo Insane Clown Party, And what's going to happen is the Congress is going to elect Danny Chump, Daddy Boy Danny Chump, the guy who was the apprentice, he still is, and they're going to make him Speaker of the House, because in the Constitution, so nothing that the Speaker has to be a voted on representative in Congress. And already in history, they have put guys in as the Speaker who weren't congressmen, right? And in 2024, some moron like Moscow Mitch, but I think his name should be really Beijing Mitch, because his old lady is, the daughter of the man who has the largest shipping company in China. I think that the Democrats want to tax and spend, and before you know it, we're going to be Europe. Mitchie boy, he's going to be president. And he's not going to wear a suit anymore. He's going to wear a black cowl, So it's going to be interesting, between now and 2024, and inauguration in January of 2025. So 25 to 30 is going to be one crazy wacko roller coaster ride like you can't even believe, gang. And the only thing that can stop this, change this, make amends is if you all become consciously aware of your 360, what's going on around you, and consciously intent what you want in your life. And it's not a bigger car. No. Because if you are going on the line of materialism's ego, ooh, baby, it's not going to look good. Just go look at the fall of Mesopotamia. Go look at the fall of Rome. Go look at the fall of Spain. Go look at the Gilded Age. We had catastrophes, between 1790 and 1880. The mud flood, no one even talks about that. There's the whole, go look at, it was called the Orphan Exchange, meaning so many people died in the mud flood, and the only folks who were left were children, that they were kids in America, were all over the place because their parents were dead. Does anyone talk about that? No. Look up the mud flood. Go look up a guy named John Fordor, the Fordoring Society. I should be a member of that. And he was the science editor of the Herald Tribune, really great newspaper. He died around the 1990s. It's still got, I think, a internet presence, but it used to be really much better than Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. But anyway, so he was their science editor, and he, there were two fires in Chicago. One when Chicago was just boom town and everything was wood. And yes, Miss McGillicuddy's cow did knock over the lantern and everything was wood, and there was no water pipes, and there was, a really windy day, and that was the end of Chicago. Well, about 40 years later, just after the Civil War, give or take, and Chicago had become a city of concrete, stone, and steel, a comet or asteroid came out of the sky and whacked not just Chicago, but the whole state of Illinois and the other two states, right? And, it killed and it caused the Mississippi to go backwards, and that was the mud flood. And, do we even have that in our history books? No. But if you go to the Fordoring Society, if they haven't taken it out of existence, you can find a lot of information about it. So that's a good thing to go take a look at. And in my life, I keep bouncing into and bumping into things that go bump in the night. And instead of being petrified by them, I just kind of go, And if you put a protractor in the middle of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and put a 600-mile circle around that, there are places like in Asheville, in Irwin, Tennessee, in Johnson City, Tennessee, in places all over the place where there were other laboratories, other facilities, not just in Oak Ridge, making things for the Manhattan Project. And the Manhattan Project wasn't just nuclear weapons. It was a whole different way at looking at science. And that's why we have these national laboratories all over the, Los Alamos, Sandias, Kirkland Air Force Base, Chicago, Fermi Labs, Brookhaven in Long Island, where Tesla was doing, the he built, Warden Cliffs, which was more than, free, more than, the commercial exhibition of 0 point energy and wireless transmission. It also was about transmutation of energy into matter. It was also about time travel. And that's what they do at Brookhaven. And that's what they did in Montauk. That's what the Montauk Project was about. That's what the Philadelphia experiment was about. Oh, the Mississippi mud flood asteroid made it run backwards. Wow. Yep. Go take a look. Don't believe anything I say. And I would keep running into people who experience these things. I had mentors, Billy Kluver, who was part of the Rad Lab, and the thing that won the Second World War really wasn't the atomic bomb. It was the Rad Lab, because it developed a whole different technology. And the Germans were so far ahead of us. I mean, they had color TV of the 1936 Olympics, right? And they had bombs, they had smart bombs. They had bombs that had TV cameras in it, and that the pilot, once he released the bomb, they had another guy sitting in the back watching, on a TV too, and he had little joysticks that he could maneuver that bomb right onto that bridge, right into the window of where that guy was staying. Smart bombs. They did that in the 1930s and 40s. And they went from that. And so most of the flying saucers you see were, especially in the 40s and 50s, were the nationalist socialists, right? And with Operation Paperclip, all of the 70,000 Nazis were taken from Germany through the Vatican into the United States. And they were all over our government. That's what the CIA was. That was what NSA was. That's what every alphabet thing you can think of is. And, they were using our economic base to build a, breakaway civilization. Go Google breakaway civilization. Go read David Icke. There are a ton of people who have this. Joseph P. Farrell, he's a historian. He's not just a guy like me. He's, I'm a, I fit into a smaller little group of, I'm a itinerant scholar. I'm kind of like Plato, but more like Play-Doh rather than Plato, And Plato, he was a guy like me. He was more a chucklehead, comic relief kind of guy, because I'm like him, he was like me, that we just kept bumping into things, and we had an open enough mind not to say, oh, that can't be true. We all said, and we also had teachers that, I had this guy named Adam Purple, I met when I was 14 playing chess in Washington Square Park at NYU. And this guy had been in the Second World War, Korean War, and a ton of other wars. And he just unplugged and became a bohemian, and he lived in he's the guy who taught me how to live in abandoned buildings, how to dumpster dive, So that's where we are at. And mud flood. Yep. No, mud flood was more like California's more the earthquake zone. Mud flood was asteroid hitting Chicago, causing the Mississippi to go backwards, to just push up, and all the water that was going that was whoop, and that whole section of everything, Missouri, Ohio, Mississippi, Louisiana, Illinois, they all got mud, and it changed the weather, so it had tremendous rain. I mean, it was just a mess, right? And millions died, right? And the only thing that was left were kids, right? Just like, any of you guys have watched the movie Gangs of New York, and they have, so you think the Irish gangs were like, fighting each other. I mean, that's what the movie, but it's really the Irish Draft Rebellion. The Irish people were coming to America from, the famine in Ireland. And the English, there's plenty of other vegetables growing, not just, they just gave potatoes to the Irish people, made it a law. And it turned, England was turning all of England into basically factories. And so they needed, food for the workers. So they had it all growing in Ireland. And because potatoes have a lot of starch and gives them a lot of, can-do energy, but nothing to grow on. But then they engineered a virus to wipe out the potatoes. So they wiped out the Irish people. Irish potato famine killed about somewhere between 6 and 12 million Irishmen, just wiped them out. The other half took off to America, and we were looking for them because we needed them to fight in the Civil War. I think the new breakaway civilization will be the androids. Well, they're already here, and they're already doing their thing. And all you have to do is the guy who was the code breaker for England at Bletchley Park, his name will pop into my head, but he wrote a book called Golub or Android. I mean, he's a guy who basically, not Android, but when human beings are half robot and half human, Cyborg was his book. And he wrote another one about artificial intelligence, like in the 30s, right? And he was a guy who coined the phrase transhumanism, right? So, and they were working on that then. And nation states, stopping nation states after the fall of the Roman Empire, right? It was always have been a transnational thing, right? And a lot of countries like France and England, Germany, Spain, Portugal got played, manipulated into being what they were, and then failed because they weren't thinking about their people, or all they were thinking about was the leadership crew, their egos, right? Turing, thank you. Yep, that's the guy. You should read his 2 books. They are like, right? And that's where the guy who did the movie Metropolis, and another movie called Things to Come. And Metropolis was a silent film, and Things to Come were one of the first. And they both pegged where we are right now. And then a movie done in the 70s called Zardos is like we are on the edge, where they make these bubbles of gated communities where the super wealthy live and everyone else is like, zombies, right? And because they want the rest of the population to die, but they still want them to do it slow so they can still grow food for the rich. And they already, and they, go to the stars and find out nothing's there. Meaning we are so far in the back. I mean, it's not that there aren't, conscious life forms all over the place, but we can't get to them, until we learn how to fold time and space, until we go, warp drive. We're not going nowhere. And we're not going nowhere. I mean, we've already kind of developed that technology. Lockheed and Boeing and Grumman Aerospace all have this, like the LEM. The LEM, it could not have gone to the moon if it was not using gravomagnetic propulsion. And when you see, they had the camera, watching the LEM take off, and a rocket, starts up, the engine burns, and then it slowly goes up, and then it shoots away, right? Well, the LEM just, like a light switch, wing, was, gone. Why? Because it wasn't using a chemical propellant. It was using gravomagnetic propulsion, right? And we went there not to just collect rocks, but to collect archaeological things, just like why we had the first Gulf War, because the Germans and the French had been basically unearthing a Stargate, right? And they were realizing that the keys to the automobile were in the museum in Baghdad. So they the English and the Americans ferment a red flag and go in, and we take the Eighth Army, not to go into Baghdad, but to shoot over somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in the desert in Baghdad, in Iraq, and point the guns at the Germans and the French, saying, "Give us that shit, or we're going to kill you." And so they did, right? And they said, "Listen, you guys who found it smart, you're going to come back to, we're going to take this all to Australia to Pine Gap, and we'll play with it there together, right? But we're going to control it." The Anglo-American, special relationship, And what is that relationship? In the Revolution, we didn't friggin' win that. The English had the strongest army on the planet, and they fought us for about 3 years, and they won every frigging battle, and then they just left. Why? Because they wanted us to be their bitches, right? So we make our constitution, blah, 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 and it's only for the rich white guys who own property, blah, blah, blah. And then, the 1812 war occurs, and, the English come right up the Potomac and burn D.C. to the ground and say, "Okay, bitches, you're our bitches. You're going to do whatever we say." And they have been doing it ever since, right? Missing Iraq artifacts. Sloppy job, because they're hiding info about this. Yep, you got it. Babylon 5, you got it. They put everything on television in science fiction, Look, they showed us the, microwave oven and the flip phone on Star Trek in 1968, So, so that's what's going on. So, MJ, what else you got for me? What do you want me to tell you? What stories? Now, I've met a lot of aliens, right? And I've had missing time in my life, right? So I've experienced, I guess, abductions. I found little scars on me, and I've had doctors take things out of me, but I'm consciously aware, right? And after the first time I had, so I'll tell you the story about my first lost time. I had a good friend who is a real bohemian, rainbow guy, and he was living in Tennessee in Irwin, and I came to visit him, and he bought this beautiful chunk of river right along the Nolichucky there as it goes through Irwin, Tennessee. And he had, whoever owned the property built a nice house, and then two of these nice little houses along the river, and of course the river overflowed over those houses, so they were a little messy, a little moldy. So he was trying to build other houses kind of on stilts, and he was going to, this is way before Airbnb, but that's what he was going to do, have it, because it was such a beautiful site. So he wanted me to, he had electricity on site, so he wanted, he had lots of people. So he had them dig ditches and put water pipes and septic lines and ran pipes for electricity, and I had them pull wire, and I had them, I started wiring the houses they were building. So there was this one place they were building, and they built the floor, and they, like I said, they elevated, so because the flood would be coming in and be 2 feet above ground level. So he built these things about 4 feet off the ground, and he built decks, and but he didn't have any steps. So this one house I'm wiring, he had cinder blocks, kind of the steps. And so I was working there, and I was bringing this line in, and I had a ladder leaned up on the cinder blocks, stupid me. And I gone in to have lunch, and he had tons of people. It was like Rainbow Town, and so everyone's puffing and making food. And so I go in and get something to eat and do a little puff and hang with the girls, and then I go back to working on what I was working on. So I had this ladder stuck on, and I had puffed a little bit too much, so I not quite my sharpest self, and the cinder blocks flew one way, the ladder went the other way, and I went whee, right? And when I woke up, so it was maybe 3 in the afternoon, and it was like maybe September, so it was still warmish. And I woke up and I was 200 yards from where I had been, right? I was in the middle of the road. And before I went over there, after I had lunch and did a few puffs, phone rang, and it was this guy who had a job, and he was calling his girlfriend to come pick him up, not to forget that he's going to get off of work at 4:30 and come get me, be there with the car, blah, blah, blah. So, I go up to electric work. I put the ladder where I shouldn't. I take a fall. It looks like I'm going to kill myself. I'm like tumbling through the air and, heading for rocks and cinder blocks. And when I wake up, it's 8 o'clock at night. It's dark. And what I'm waking up to is this guy leaning on a horn. I'm in the middle of the road, and the headlights are on me. It's a cab. And the guy who had called up his girlfriend to pick him up, she didn't go. So he waited, and then just called a cab and took it there. And there I am in the middle of the road. And so he gets out, the cabbie guy, puts it in park, and they lift me up, and you okay? I was kind of bleeding. And I had, 3 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I had lost quite a few hours there, more than. There was nothing wrong. I just kind of scraped my head, right? It was really nothing. And I had a few other little black and blue marks that when I went to see a doctor, a friend of mine, were really more like implants than me, hurting something on the inside. And it hurt, So I went to this doctor I knew, and he x-rayed it and said, well, you didn't break anything and you don't have any cartilage damage. You have something inside you, it's a twig and he tried to see. I said, when did this happen? I said, well, 2 days ago. Well, it's all healed over. How could that be? If that was like a nail or something, or, I don't know what it is. So I'm going to take it out. And so he did. And he kind of cut me. It was just not deep in me, but right in the derma. And when he tried to get it with, tweezers, the thing would run away from him. Right. So he kind of forced it into a little tube like a vacuum cleaner, and he sucked it up. And then when he sent it off to, Chapel Hill, they couldn't tell him what it was made out of. They couldn't tell what it was. They said it had an energy signature, meaning it was electronic or some kind of device, but they did not have a clue. And then when he asked for it back, they said, well, someone came and took it. So that was my first experience of missing time. I like that. Multi-dimensionality, light being transfiguration. Yes, it's probably what it is. Yep. Reality, probability, and hallucinations. Yep. Could be that too. Why is life the med? Well, again, this is the movie, what was it? The simulation of the where Neo was running the 3 movies. He thought it was reality. When he woke up, he was in a bathtub, and then the guys in the submarine came and got him. Whatever the name of that movie was. I mean, that's what we're in. All these movies really kind of give us the heads up of what it is, so we're not that uncomfortable when we bump into this shit, right? And we're also like the majority of the brain dead mud puppets. All they want is like me. I can 40% of the time I'm a moron. The other 60% I'm conscious. I try to be my best and be conscious intent and conscious awareness. But I can be you saw me eating those 2 other videos. I was like enjoying that, and because that's part of, if you're going to have this mud puppet, you might as well enjoy it. And that's the sad thing, is that most people don't enjoy it. Consciousness is eternal. That's true. That's what it is. That is your spirit. That is your spirit that's in co-creation with love, all our relations. And that's what it is. So that's why none of this ego shit, none of this crazy crap, none of this, insectoids conquering us, none of it matters. Sorry, gang. We are in a sandbox, and we're kind of in a prison planet. Yes, the Nazis kind of escaped to the moon, which is an artificial. That is the death planet. That is what George Lucas called the Death Star, or the Death whatever. I mean, it's an artificial spaceship. And our solar system, the belt, the asteroid belt is like the remnants of a war that wiped 3 other planets out. Jupiter is supposed to have been a sun, but kind of didn't ignite. Most solar systems are, 2 suns. Infinity, eternity. Well, one deals with time, one deals with space, right? And they're almost interchangeable. So you can, whichever is most comfortable, right? Eternity is like with space, infinity is like with time. Into infinity and beyond, right? What's beyond infinity is my question. So, multi-dimensional, what is that word? Multi-dimensionality. Okay, right. They have no teeth. So when they say, you sound it out, well, it's kind of hard to sound certain things out when you got no teeth, and your teeth help you, shape certain consonants and vowels. Right? Multi-dimensionality. Yep. When you get over 300 pounds, that's when you're multi-dimensionality. I was, when I was pushing 420, I was multi-dimensional. Light being transfiguration. I like that word, transfiguration. That's almost a Roman Catholic word, right? Reality, probably, and hallucination, right? But what causes a hallucination? But no, there were a lot of physical things that made me realize that. But once that happened, now I had seen earlier than that, back in the early 80s and the late 70s, when I came back from the West and working in the national laboratories and seeing really crazy bullshit, I told my, social activist friends, forget all this, forget the Vietnam War, forget, the environmental movement, forget any of that, because it doesn't matter. Nuclear weapons, what these morons are doing, this can end in a bad day in 30 seconds. So, the, environmental stuff, that's gonna, whether we cleaned up our act or not. I mean, in 1891, they knew all about global warming, and it wasn't coming out of a smokestack. It had more to do what we have done energetically to the sun than anything else, right? Our greed is the real factor, not, getting a carbon tax. No, I'm sorry. Anything that goes down in a mercantile sensibility is just greed of ego. Ego's greed, right? So, what else can I say? So, hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Don't believe a word I say. I'm just telling you a story. This show is not for infantile minds. So, it is for the innocent at heart, though. And anybody who wants to get a hold of me can get a hold of me at thedudeawake42@gmail. And if you want to lay something down into my PayPal account, which a number of you have done, and I truly, truly appreciate it, but I could use a little more help, because being out in the woods, I don't really spend any money, but being on the BOP, I can basically, my car died getting here, and miraculously, out of nowhere, when I brought my car to the mechanic, and they said, we're going to take a look at this, and they called me up. Oh, we can to fix everything to make your car save $2,800. Well, I had 35. I said, I only have 35. Well, that you can change the oil. I said, well, change the oil. So I was at a place. A friend of mine was taking me to lunch. We talked for about an hour. The phone rang again because I can't explain this, but we were looking at, your whole car was in our computer, which is a planetary, thing. We have places all over the world, and we can't tell how, but there is $2,000 into your car account, meaning we can spend $2,000 on fixing your car. And to fix it 100% was $2,800, but somehow 2,000 got there. And I said, well, is it a bank? Can you transfer it to my? No, we can just spend it on your car. You can't cash it in for cash. You can get your car fixed, but you can't. Where did that come from? No idea. I said, so you can't tell me who? Was it anyone I knew? And he said, well, did you tell anyone? I said, well, no, really. Not. I dropped it off with you, and then you called me and told it was going to $2,800, and I told you to just change the oil, and so they. Basically, my car now is 80% safer than it was. It still rattles a lot and still needs another $800 to make it really good. But the guy said I could probably get, on what he did. You could get around safely on, on what we did for at least, 40, 50,000 miles. Anyway, but probably before my car dies, everyone will have a car. It'll be an app on your phone, and bingo, a vehicle will be there, right, and take you someplace. So it'll be like HBO had a series called Westworld. It was their version of and they did a really good job. That was a very good series. I don't know if they called it Westworld, but it was their version of Westworld, and it was really, 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 really good, right? And all of these shows that are coming out are really coming from, our deepest version of our id, trying to smarten us up. And so, I'm feeling actually somewhat positive about all this, because 25 years ago, that's why I started working in the corporate world to make money, to be a hedonist, because I didn't think the world was going to last too much longer. So I was going to go out in a big bathtub of chocolate mousse, and I have to say that I enjoyed every spoonful of it. And, at 10 years of, total hedonism, I can see why, the corporate world gets addicted to it, but, dying in a plate of spaghetti kind of wised me up, being rolled into a operating room and I bounce out of unconsciousness. I mean, I had the needle in my arm, and they were feeding me that shit that, when they knock you out to be cut up so you don't wake up. Well, I woke up before they, started swabbing me. And I said, wait, what's going on here? What are you doing? And they freaked out. A lot of people ran out of the, away from me because I had so much fentanyl in me. I should not have woken up. But the guy said, well, we're going to do, quadruple bypass and cut your legs off. I said, what? I said, oh, it's the only way to keep you alive. I said, no. I'm not, no. Roll me back in the ice. No, you can't just, we're all ready to do it. I said, no, I woke up for a reason. One, I didn't sign anything. Roll me back there. I'm going to sue the crap out of you. Own your children. And so they did. And then the guy who said it was okay was the lawyer I was working for. And he just wanted me to be able to finish what I was doing in the next 2 weeks. Well, man, if you get a quadruple bypass and they cut your legs off, you're not doing anything in 2 weeks. So I tell him, listen, you want me to do this? You need to send me down to your really nice house down in the Keys, and I need a colonic therapist. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need this. He did, and I did. I got better, right? And then I took care of his business, and he let me stay in this really nice, palatial place on the Florida Keys, and he left all those people taking care of me for another 4 months, right? And so I got to a place where I wasn't going to die, and the infections went away, but I still had to lose the 240 pounds. And that took another 6 years. Right? And so I couldn't do anything for 6 years, and I could barely walk. and things were still, I could still get infections really bad. Anyway, I changed all of that, right? And my conscious intent was to get, lose 240 pounds. And that's what I did. And, I went to see three more mechanics that I know to see if they could fix the $800 worth of stuff in my car for less than that. And everyone, because I hadn't seen them in 4 years, were like blown away. Because last time all those guys saw me, I had a walker and I had, things on my legs, and I never looked like I was going to live past the afternoon. And I couldn't believe that I just walked into their shops and was in pretty good shape, and lost, I'd probably lost 100 pounds, maybe 120 pounds since I saw all those guys. I just couldn't how'd you do that? Because they're all heading that way, And anyway, so that's what conscious intent will do for you. That's what conscious awareness will. It's what being conscious about anything will do for you. Because being conscious puts you into connectivity with love's co-creation of all our relations and makes you understand about being the we and me. Let's see. What is the difference between, okay, what's the next one? Why is there a shortage of microchips and cars on lots now? Well, because, as I just said, they are going to change the technology base, right? And so they will not have, in 5 years, there will not be a single automobile, train, bus, boat, airplane that runs on hydrocarbons. It will all be energy, 0-point energy, because the photonic energy is there. They just need to, take the technology that Tesla developed in 1891 and put it out in the market. And the only reason they didn't do it because J.P. Morgan said, "Well, that's good, that's good, Tesla, but we can't make any money at giving free energy." Well, now they can, because it's not money that's going to be made. It will be human occupation, meaning we will be put where we won't own anything. We won't own our house. We won't own a car. We won't own anything. We will be given just what Rome did with bread and circus, right? And that's how it will control the masses. That's why there won't be a revolution. That's why the morons who are running the show are going to try and hold on to power, even though everything has changed, because we're no longer in the Piscean age. We're in the Aquarian age. Piscean age, getting what you through violence and taking things and cheating and lying and stealing and oppressing. That's the Piscean age. Aquarian age, understanding what you need through truth and love's co-creation. And they do not want that, because then everyone here will realize we live on a planet of abundance, not a prison planet, right? That's when everything will be in balance. And all we have to do is love. For things to be in balance, love is all we need to do, right? That's why they whacked John Lennon. He put that song, "All you need is love," and he was going more and more for that. And Paul, not so much. He liked, the material world. He liked singing silly love songs, Do you think the pandemic is a cycle operation for the coming? Yep, exactly. And, we have viruses all the time. And all viruses are, you talk to anyone, any virologist, and they will tell you, well, we have no idea what a virus is, but it acts like a toxin. When you get sick from any of these viruses, and 19 is a good example, what you die from is your body overreacting, your immune system going nuts, right? That's why you get the pneumonia. That's why you get your lungs full of liquid. That's why, all of these things happen. It's a, almost an allergic reaction to a toxin. That's what a virus illness is. And so whether that, if you go look at the Cliff High's channel, And boy, they're taking him apart, and he was on YouTube. They kicked him off YouTube. Then he was on page. He can't really, he has to really do it sideways, right? Now, I just tell stories, right? I'm just a storyteller. Don't believe a word I say, But, and another guy, what's his name? Max Igon, who had a Crow House, I think. That was a really good channel. He was really speaking. I don't even know where he went. He like disappeared. And so now a lot of people know me. But I think the only reason I'm still here is that if I disappeared, people will go, my God, everything he said must be true because he's not here anymore, And I'm just telling you stories. I'm not saying, I said, don't believe a word I say. That none of this is true. This is just a story. I'm just a griot. I'm just telling you a story. I'm telling you a story for you to think for yourself. That's what I'm here to do, to assist you to wake up. That's what happens when you become part of the cadre. You wake up. And you, from that point of waking up, not being woke, I hate it when they take words I use and do, like I used to call myself a progressive. I can't call myself a progressive. You know what a liberal is? Someone who feels guilty about being misogynistically racist, Not going to do anything about it. They're not going to be any better. They're just going to feel a little guilty, Whoa. EEN, how you doing, buddy? Happy everything to you. Good to see you. Good to see everyone on the channel. I'm glad you're here. It's an hour and 31 minutes. What time is it? Let's see. There it is. It's 9 o'clock. So, I figured out what was wrong and I fixed it, and that's how I'm being able to come to you on the internet. I have a internet guru buddy of mine, and when he's show stuff, I listen to his issues. I give him perspective. He really likes that. He has electric current problems. I fix it for him. He likes that, right? I get him and his old lady to get along. He likes that, right? I get him and his family to get along. He likes that. I cook meals for them. He likes that. So when he's happy to do what he does, fix my phone, fix my laptop, and fix my whatever things I need on the software side, but he just goes, here it is. And it's like that obvious IT guy who just does it and doesn't really show you how to do it. So now that I'm away from him, I have to figure this crap out myself. It's slow and steady does the race. So I figured it out, and that's a good thing. Now I know more. I still don't know how to make my picture smaller so my toolbars appear instead of me having to move my cursor up there. But that's okay. One day I'll figure it out. Right? And it's all about patience and humility. Right? So I spent all spring, summer, fall dealing with stupid rich people moving into my Garden of Eden and doing stupid shit like destroying the road. I mean, we live on we live on a cliff, and the road is made out of dirt, right? And these morons were bringing big vehicles. I mean, you gotta have a soft path when you're in the woods. And these guys destroyed all of the Forest Service roads. And these were Forest Service roads. Forest Service ain't doing anything with them now, so they're not taking care of them. And we live in a rainforest, so when it does rain, it can wash things away if you disturb the homeostasis of the road. Of course, these morons did that, right? And did all kinds of chop trees down and bulldoze this and the other folk who have been living there, and I'm like, they're surrounding me, and they go, how can you stand it? And how I can stand it is by being patient, because when these morons did all this unbelievable crap, I have a little car, so my wheelbase is 4 feet. They have big vehicles that have wheelbases of like 6-7 feet. And so,
and 18 wheels and so they couldn't drive on the roads. So I've been there 20 years and I've always think, I need to put some stone here so the road doesn't wash away. A, I didn't have the money. B, I didn't have the time. C, I got really sick and my body couldn't really do it like I used to be able to do it 20 years ago. So the guy destroyed everything, so he had to fix it. So he did it, it cost him, I don't know how many thousands of dollars, and he did exactly what I needed to be done, but I didn't have to do it because he did it. It's called patience, right? And humility. Instead of me screaming at him, I just, and I don't know what it is about him, but he hates, I had this big roll of caution tape, that they put on, crime scenes. And so, there was a cliff on one side and a big ditch on the other side by what he did. And I can't see it too well. So I put the yellow tape on either side. And for some reason, it drove him insane. I think that was the thing that motivated him. So that was patience and humility. So, and that's what we need to be able to be consciously aware and consciously have conscious intent about what we want to do with our lives. And when we have that conscious awareness and that patience and that humility, that's when we get connected, like a high voltage line to love's co-creation. And that's what I'm here to help you with, right? And so if you go back and, I got probably almost 2,000 shows. Been doing this now 3 years. And they're there. I can't always find them, but they're there. And folks who know how to navigate the internet better than I do can find whatever, right? And of course, I don't, everything's stream of, I spend the first 10, 15 minutes going into state myself, and then I just kind of do this, stream of consciousness thing. I don't really like Miss Grace there and, Dark Journal. They do amazing research and, produce their shows and, and there are a lot of people who do a really good job. And what I love about those two guys is that there are a lot of people who have pretty good shows, but it's all about them. And they want to make money and they want to be famous and they want to be an A-lister. Not so much, right? And so I use this avenue of YouTube to reach out to you, my cadre, and to help you be the best you can be. That's what I want out of you, And if you guys have a few dollars, you can, place into my PayPal because, it works. It's like that $2,000. It showed up out of nowhere, right? So I'm serving Love's Co-Creation, so Love's Co-Creation takes care of me, right? And my car, I had to drive 200 miles to get to this neighborhood, and it wouldn't even start. I had to spend, $400 just to get it to start, and still the electric system is. But Love's Co-Creation is that car is going to take care of me until the state gives me the wireless gizmo that will get me anywhere I want to go, and they will do it because I am still a better, they need me more than I need them. The corporate fascist state needs Al Bob more than I need it. I can live in the woods. I lived through 2 winters out there in the woods by myself, basically sleeping on the ground. I can do it. I proved I can do it. I lost 240 pounds. My body, I just had myself checked out by all my fancy doctors. And they all, they always say, you're the best dead guy, you're the best looking dead guy I know, right? So, I'm going to be here as long as Love's Co-Creation needs me. I'm here to serve, right? I'm here to serve you, to be better and better, right? That's what I'm here to do for you, my cadre. What I want you to do is you can send me whatever you can in PayPal, and I'll love that. That'll help me. But what I really want you to do is in your neighborhoods, start doing stuff to make people go, start being your better self. Start being better and better. And do whatever you want to do. A number of you folks have stepped up and started restaurants and nightclubs and starting little businesses making clothes and art, and they're doing okay. And they're extraordinarily happy because they're not working at Burger King anymore. They're doing what they want to do. And to do that, they have to be consciously aware. And to do that, they have to be conscious with their intent on what they want to do so they can be aware of it. And that's why I do this show, to give you, I am living example of that. You guys can do this. If an old guy like me, who has totally put himself through every ringer there is and done everything except hold elected office and brain surgery, I've done everything else and done it well, because I don't do anything unless I'm being my better self, right? So. It's an hour and 40 minutes. Some little buggy kind of got me. This house is really kind of, haunted. But it's not. It's more of a paranormal eyeglass. So when I do this, sometimes I start to itch, And it's not like I can find any bugs around that are biting me. And I can't even see any red marks where they're biting me. It just itches. It's like that edge of the other universe is kind of rubbing up against my ear or my arm or whatever starts to itch. And yes, when you become awake, you will get what is known. So we live in this mud puppet that has 6 and below senses. When you start to be consciously aware, you have the 6 and above, right? X-ray vision and, smell of vision and, super duper, thing. You'll be feeling things you never thought you could feel. See things you never thought you could see, And some people say, well, you need glasses, when I'm seeing things. I can see people's auras and their energy and you name it, I can see it. So can you. I'm no different than you. I'm just consciously aware. I'm just consciously have intent to serve love's co-creation in every day and every way to make it stronger, because that's what will get all of my relations to be able to survive, to ascend. And that's what we're here to do, ascend our consciousness. Take that step of the ladder, up. Right? Otherwise, you just get thrown back into the karmic wheel. I mean, I've died 6 times. Last time I died in that plate of spaghetti, I was ready to go. I was tired. I was like, a little bit, 10 years of self-loathing, of hedonism. It can get you, it's a lot of fun. I can't say that I did not enjoy every spoonful, right? Everything I did, right? And because I was still serving love's co-creation, or at least I was kidding myself that I was. But I was, in my, Sensei Al-Bob way, I was doing better and better. Even doing corporate scum work, I was doing better and better. So that's why, when I died and, was in the viewing room of my life, and I was eating, welcome home cake, and I had a party hat on my head, and there were balloons everywhere. I was going, good, I can just go to sleep now and be restful. And my masters said, oh, well, you're doing a great job, buddy. But, if you're tired, you can come home and you can, be in the easy boy lounger. But you have not finished your task that you agreed to do. So if you die and go over the river, you will just be placed into the wearing blender of karma and spat out someplace else. And who knows where that'll be. But you got 3 more deaths and a good chunk of life, and you can double down on doing the good job. And once you finish, you will have done everything you said you would do. You'll have that unbelievable sense of completion, and you will ascend to the next step. So that's why I'm still here, right? But, consciously aware and consciously intent of doing my best to serve love's co-creation and you, my cadre. And it's not my cadre, it's all our relations, right? And that's where you guys and gals, and when I say guys, I mean, pejoratively, everybody. I could say girls, all you girls out there, and because whether you're not a guy or a girl, you're both. Blah. And the only reason sex doesn't really. I mean, I enjoy it, especially when it's good. But it's not the thing I'm thinking about. It's not distracting me, And the only reason I kind of do it and still do it today is that I find someone that I like being with and sharing with them. And it's, since I was 50, I've always had this thing of understanding that twin flame, that I'm a female, they're a male. They're a female, I'm the male. It's like we are that twin flame. And you cannot experience love unless you're in that state, right? You're not just, no, and then go to sleep. No, you have to be the whole Monty. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Might as well just jerk off, because that's what everyone's doing anyway. I mean, this whole material world is one big circle jerk, And don't believe a word I say. And everything I say is just a cartoon for your entertainment. It means nothing. And no children, no adolescents, no, stupid minds should be watching this show. Oh, and it's fish. Hey, y'all. Happy everything to everybody. Every day in every way is a holiday. Every day in every way you should be celebrating. Every day in every way you should enjoy every little nuance that you're doing, I was talking to my friend whose house this is, who she's, in Las Vegas where it's 80 degrees. I said, you left in the good time. It was like 60 when you left, and now it's 18. It's 18. I said, yep. It's how they are. So they're okay. And I spent, the other thing I spent money on was I bought heat lamps for everybody. I mean, that set me back $100. And, but they seem to like it. They're smart enough, that all the animals are like sleeping right under their heat lamps. So I put them all in the barn, and that's better than being out there in the grounds. But they slept a few nights out in the grounds before I realized, nobody was complaining or shivering or anything. So it's, they want me to they like my attention. They love it when I'm out there, because I'm always scratching them and brushing them and feeding them and giving them hay to lie on, and and so it's and mucking out their stalls. So and I'm here all the time. So my friend, she's she's going through changes. Like I said, she got COVID. Her husband died. Blah blah blah. And so I told her the other day when I talked, I said, baby, every second you have with your kids and your grandchildren, you have to realize it is the sweetest orange there is. And squeeze that juice and drink it, every drop as sweet as honey, and live every second that you're there. Enjoy and stay, I can stay here as long as you need me here. You hang with them. You be real with them. You appreciate them. Right? 100%. Right? And so she is. So, and that's why I'm doing this. It's warmer. The couch is a little more comfortable than the ground. It's okay. And I needed a change. I love being in my Garden of Eden. Winter, I spent 2 winters. It was not the best. It was okay. I'm glad I did it. It showed me that I could survive almost anything. So anyway, that's it. And I know when I die, I probably have 3 more deaths in me. The next 2 won't be that big a deal. The third one is I'm going home, right? But I have how many years that is between then and now. And I know that I have a number of important relationships because about 5 of you are, in constant contact with me. And a good 20 of you have changed your life, and I really, really, really love the fact that you're being better and better, and that I'm being a good example. And the other 450 of you, you all have done better, have changed. Not as committed as, because some of you guys were real trolls, were about to off yourself, and stepped away from that cliff, and I have to commend you on that, right? And those 20 or so people and the next 5 who were doing pretty good but have really stepped up to being the best they can be, that could not have happened without the rest of you cadre there, the 550 of you that are there. You have to realize that you may think you're just the same sloth that you've always been. No, you've changed for the better, so much so that you have energetically helped your cadre to become better. So that's why I know it's not over. And the morons, and then when you ask questions about, is this blah blah blah, that's all it is, blah blah blah. Much better to spend the energy and ask me questions about how to do better. You should look into getting a cot. I mean, I have a bed that's more comfortable than a cot. And I have a hammock. I'm a real hammock boy, But no matter, I have my man cave, and I have my little cabin, and I have my, spiritual church or whatever you want to call it. And I have all those things. And spring, summer, and fall, it's very nice. And you guys should come and visit, Get a hold of me at the dudeawake42@gmail, and, come and visit and talk. And if I have a lot of folk who are, in foreign lands, and I talk to them on WhatsApp. And, well, it's all ready to be done. We're all moving forward. We're all making it happen. To use while you are on the bomb. And we just, the couch ain't that bad, I have to, it's like I said, it's okay. It's the thing that's really not bothersome, but it's the spirit edge here, the angst energy. There was a lot of suffering. This was a slave plantation, and this house was like, a slave house. Parts of this house are, more than 150 years old. So there's a lot of things that went down here. So, that's the thing. And, no cot's gonna make up for that. But, and it's okay, It's because I talk to them like I talk to you, and they could, this place could be really miserable, but it's not. It's just, I get a little itch now and then. I just have to put a little cream on it. Well, it's almost been 2 hours, and I love the fact you're thinking about me, Fish, and all of you are, because I can feel your energy of trying to help, and I really appreciate that. And that, spurs me on to do better and better. And that's what I'm here to do, to inspire you guys to do better and better, right? And so that's what it is. And I've met so many different people, so many different species, so many different, I've met a lot of alien folk, right? And I've talked to them like I'm talking to you, and that's why they like me. Yes, I've been I've been taken away a few times, but I think once they realized, oh, that this guy ain't the usual bear, they took me out of rotation, and they just come and bump into me at a coffee shop and we talk. They don't need to, knock me out and put little devices in my body. So that hasn't happened for a good 25 years. So, so that's the story. And okay, so here it is, 155. And so when it hits 155.55, I'm going to say goodnight. And once I fix this thing so I can talk to you more from here, so I will. So, okay, guys, I love you. Stay well, be good. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay. And I bought myself the turkeys were unbelievable. They wanted $35 for a measly, last year, the last turkey I bought, was about 15, 20 pounds, and it was like $9. This one was like, 8 pounds, and they wanted $35. I was like, yeah, right. So I bought a big chicken that I can stuff and cook like a turkey. And that was only $5. It was 8-pound chicken for $5. So anyway, there's always a way to go. Yeah. So, okay. Good night. Sweet dreams. Good night. Good night. Sweet dreams. Sweet dreams.